Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want a child so deeply.
And desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough.
Hey, I'm Ann.
And I'm Kendra, and you're listening to Hannah's Heart on American Family Radio. And hey, we just want to remind you guys, God is in control, man. No matter what your journey is, we are a show that started off for couples struggling with infertility or miscarriage. That was our story, to come around you, hold your hands, and encourage you that Jesus is our rock. He is sufficient. He is the anchor for the soul that holds you firm and secure. And we love every week to just be able to remind you of that message.
That's right. And remind ourselves over and over again, too. Sometimes it
100%.
shows, you think you're here for the audience, but yeah, you definitely get ministered to along the way. If you're here this week, I encourage you, if you missed last week, to go back and give last week's show a listen so you can catch up on what we're about to start talking about. We started talking about a wonderful story of what started out with infertility, and I guess infertility is still part of the story, but that foster care and adoption and so many other things involved during that time, and how they actually came together to bring a beautiful family together, and something that wouldn't have happened without infertility, probably. And so I just think that it's such a way that God can bring beauty from ashes, or what we think is ashes.
And the guest of whom you speak.
And the guest, the story that I'm alluding to, is Lianna Reeder, a new friend of mine. And she was so nervous to come on for some reason, and then she sounded like she's done this over and over again.
I mean, I might have practiced in my car a few times.
If you listen to the end of her episode, you're like, she's totally done this before. There's no way that's a new thing.
Nailed it.
But we do suggest for you to go listen to the story from last week and then come back for this episode, because we're going to continue your story of
last time
foster
on.
Yeah, dum.
Who will she adopt? 3 bonus babies.
Three bonus babies, yep. And then we're about to get on to a surprise part of the story, actually.
Yes, surprise. Plot twist.
Plot twist.
Plot twist. God's good at those.
We ended the last episode talking about your third adoption through foster care, and that God had brought a biological sibling to your baby girl that you had already adopted. And so, start us off back during that time. What happened? What other things were going on during that time?
So in the middle of that, my son Isaac, who we had already adopted, his biological mom passed away. And just very unexpectedly, she lived in another state. And so we met and had a relationship with other members of his family, but just because of her circumstances, we had not actually met her. Isaac was about 5, and so she passed away, and I just felt God say to me, "Lianna, you're going to get up and you're going to speak at her funeral." Wow. And so I wrote out, because I usually write out things that I'm going to speak. So I wrote out almost like a letter to her, like what I would say to her, where she's standing in front of me.
So you have contact with the family in some way at this
Yes,
point? Okay.
we have contact. There's a few family members that we have a really good relationship with. And so some of those family members live local here, and so we got to go to the funeral.
Wow.
And I brought Isaac, and of course he's 5, so he doesn't really understand a lot, but he does understand, that's my birth mom, and we talk about it. There was a lot of questions, and I just told him as much as I thought that he could, handle. And I got up and I spoke, and I feel like so many times families of women who've maybe given their child up for adoption or their child has been taken, they look at them as kind of like having a tragic life. And she made a lot of wrong decisions along the way. She was homeless. There was some, substance abuse and things like that. And I wanted them to know that for all of the bad choices that she made one really good choice.
Amen.
Because she could have very easily had an abortion. I mean, she was homeless. I mean, that nobody would have thought a thing about it. And she didn't. She chose life. And I wanted her family to know that her one good choice changed my life forever. And so I got up with, don't know how I did it, but I did. And I read what I wanted to say because I knew I couldn't get through it. And I did that for her. And
that's beautiful.
I kept that for Isaac to read later because
your son got to hear and got to be there too.
And as long as they're young, like their birth parents, I'm going to let them, they're going to be the heroes of this story, them and God. So as they get older, they'll understand more and more of the details of the story. But for right now, he knows what he understands. And so I kept that for him to see later on and for him to fully understand.
Yeah.
But I wanted that for her and for her family. Like I wanted them to know that she mattered.
Wow. That's huge.
And so, I did that.
Wow.
I thought it was important. And so that was a big part of Isaac's story, in that relationship with his family.
And you have no idea how many people that could have impacted, even that were at the funeral.
I
That
was
may,
thinking that.
be in similar situations and choose life because of seeing how valuable life really is.
Well, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people who maybe aren't part of foster care or something like that, it's hard for them to understand why you would keep that relationship open because you've now, in a worldly sense, we could look at it as like you being the hero and you took him out of this bad environment and you saved him, but actually we know that, she had to choose life to make sure he was here and there wouldn't have been a him without a her. And so, how is it that you were able to open your heart to be able to, because that can open up for hard discussions and awkward times and, things like that. But you were willing to have that relationship with his family. What would you say to someone who was like, no, I couldn't do that?
I was thinking of future Isaac. I didn't want later on for him to say, why did you not talk to them? Where are they? I wanted to say to him when he was older and he had more detailed questions, I put forth, I wanted to keep this relationship for you. I wanted this for you because everybody wants that connection to where they're from.
Right.
And, everybody wants that. And so even though sometimes it's awkward, even though sometimes it's really hard for me to not judge or to, just put my mama feelings aside sometimes. I want, when they're older, I want to be able to say that I did that for them. And when they're older, however they want to handle that relationship, we can walk through that together.
Right.
But I wanted them to have that option. I didn't want them to not have the option of having a relationship with their birth family just because I didn't want to.
Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't
to
something
deal with that.
Didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, I didn't want to deal with that. Now every situation is different. We don't have a great relationship with some of our other birth families just for safety reasons and things. But I think if it's important, if it's possible.
I like that you said you were thinking of future Isaac. It wasn't just about your feelings and needs because parenting is about them, not us.
That's right.
And so it's so easy to make it about us, especially if you've struggled with infertility and then you finally get a child and you have all of these unmet expectations, but your ability to just check that at the door and say, this isn't about me. I am a vessel. God used me. That's awesome.
We also got to go when he turned 10 2 falls ago, he was born in Chicago, and so we got to go to. We took him by himself to Chicago.
That's cool.
And let him see the hospital that he was born in, and like his neighborhood. His aunt showed us around where his mom grew up, and so that was really good for him as well to see, to get to experience. And I'm glad that we got to do that for him
instead of it being a shameful thing.
Right.
Because I say feel, I don't know that for sure, but like I feel like it can look like such a shameful past for our kids that went through foster care because they were a foster kid. There's nothing positive about that our world talks about. But yeah, these kids did have still beautiful families and beautiful past, and I feel like it's such a important thing to honor that and to let them know, like, hey, and I love you from where you're from and all the things.
Well, they have a story just as much as we do,
Right. And this is something kind of simple, but like having that relationship open for even health reasons in the future, to be able to go back and say, hey, like this is going on. Is this part of, your family, that kind of thing, is just something that Will and I have thought about as well with our relationship that we have with Mark's biological family. But yeah, it's just a different thing,
and just something you have to kind of think about differently. And
well, jump us back into your timeline. So we're going back. You have Isaac, you have Emmy, and you have little
Willa Kate,
and they're how old?
They're like 5. That's a lot of math. 3 and 2, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, maybe 5, 3 and 2.
Okay. And the plan was always to have a big family. So what was next?
Okay. So, their Willa Kate's adoption or parental rights got appealed. So we're in that process, and we're like, God, what are you doing here? They've told us, it's going to be years. And we're like, okay, well, we'll wait it out. We had 3 children really quickly, back to back to back. And so we're like, we need to figure this out. So it was 2020, and it was the summer where the racial tensions in America came to a peak. And we had known when we adopted African-American children that we would deal with some of those things, but we had no idea what Isaac, as an African-American male living in our country, would have to deal with. And that summer brought that to our attention. Oh, wow. And so, the sisters, they have each other, but Isaac being a male, there's going to be some things that he goes through that just no one can relate, especially being an African-American male being raised by a white family. Like, it's just going to be different. And so God started placing on my heart, Isaac needs a brother that looks like him, that can go through life with him, that they can have each other. And so I was like, okay, Lord, 4 kids. and it's funny, like growing up, I'd always said I wanted 4 kids. And then Matthew grew up in a 3-kid household, and he was like 2. And I was like, well, we'll see. And then we're like, we got 3 for 4, So I'm like, okay, 4 kids, God. Like, you've put that on my heart so long ago, Definitely doesn't look like what I thought, but okay. And so we started looking into the different ways that we could expand our family. Willa Kate's adoption was still pending in the courts. And we were just like, I just don't think we can go through another case. Like, when this one is done, we're going to be done. Like, when Willa Kate,
because she wasn't finalized, your house was still open.
My house was still open. I was having
That's an important fact.
Yes, I was, all the things, getting relicensed, all those things. There's no end in sight. So we looked at a few things, and somehow, in the back of my mind, there's still this longing to experience pregnancy.
Sure. Which is not a wrong,
that's
feeling.
not a wrong.
And it's just something that every woman, when you're in a group of women, they talk about their pregnancy story.
Your body was designed to do
and
that.
I'm just kind of over there, and it's fine. Like, I don't ever want anybody to feel like they can't tell me any of those things, But I've just always had that desire. And so I started looking into embryo adoption. And had a friend's sister that did it. We talked to them, and so we just...
break that down for our audience. We've talked about it on the show, but if people are just listening right now, what is embryo adoption?
So embryo adoption is where couples that go through IVF, they create a batch of embryos, and then if they have a baby through that batch, or if they just don't use all of the embryos. Those embryos are just kind of frozen. Wow. And so they can decide to donate those, and people can adopt those. And you
and there are currently millions of them frozen.
Yes. And you go through IVF, and they implant the embryo just like they would if it was,
So neither you or your husband would be the genetic parent of that child, but you get to essentially carry it and have all of those experiences and give that child a chance at life.
Yes. Okay. And so we found a place in Nashville, and we just, again, God just kind of opened
this is every
door.
2020.
It's after 2020, after like Isaac, we feel like he needs a brother. And so we decided we were going to adopt an African-American boy embryo.
Wow.
And so we went through the whole process. I got on the profiles, and it's kind of strange. You're kind of looking at parents and looking at all their likes and these profiles and picking an embryo. And there were so many, and I was like, God, help me decide. And so I got to this profile of this husband and wife, and she had recently passed away. And the embryos had been frozen for 18 years.
Wow.
And so at the bottom, there was a little place where you put notes, and down at the notes, the husband had wrote, "May the will of God be done with these babies." And I was like, sold. That's the one. That's the one. So we picked an African-American boy embryo, and in 2022, in February, I went through the whole process with needles and all the things. Fun. And I'm like a baby. I don't even have my ears pierced. I'm a big weenie. I don't do all that, but we did it. Yeah. And they implanted a baby. And so we went through the waiting process. So you have to wait so many days, take a pregnancy test. And that day came, and you best believe I was up out of the bed, and I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive.
Your first positive
My first positive pregnancy test in, I guess that was 10 years. Matthew and I had been married, and we were so excited. And so we hadn't told a lot of people because, we didn't know what was going to happen, and definitely hadn't told our kids. And so, like, the few people that knew, they were, like, seeing me at school, like, like we were trying not to, get
It's hard to hide it when you have to go away for medical, leave for a little while.
Yeah. Well, I wanted some people to be praying for us, but, And so I went to the doctor for the blood, for the test, and then I went again.
Because they look to see that your numbers are, like, doubling over a certain period of time.
And they called me the second time, and they were like, Lianna, your numbers are not doubling. They're going down. They're like, you have had a miscarriage, a chemical pregnancy. Wow. And we were devastated. We already had a name for our baby boy, and so Ezra lived for about a few days, and then he was gone.
Well, let me just say how beautiful that you gave him a chance at life.
Well, and
and he wasn't left in limbo,
right? And that's what it took a while to get over that. But I had a really sweet friend who just always looks at things like she just helps me look at things from the glass half full, and she was like, Lianna, he's in heaven with his birth mom. Like, you did
you
that.
Gave him
yes.
That.
Like, he, had a chance at life, and he's in heaven. Like, she's just like it.
The Bible says all the days ordained for us were written in his book before one of them came to be. And he didn't get a lot of days.
Right.
But the Lord knew, and every day was precious.
Right. And so I was just like, God, I thought I knew the plan here. And I can just remember him just saying to me, like, Lianna, we've already talked about this. Like, this is not the path I have for you. Like, pregnancy, like, that's just not what I've called you to, and you're going to have to be okay with that. And so those were some dark days, but those were very silent because not everyone knew. And then, we're still waiting on Willie Kate's adoption to go through. So we're still in the middle of that. And then about a week later, we get a phone call about a baby boy.
How do you keep getting babies, too? Like, in hospital, like, everyone says it never happens. Like, it has now happened to you 4 times.
And I'm like, okay, God, I got you. I got you. Like, I knew there was a brother. I knew there was a baby boy out there. I tried to do it how I thought. I tried to make a really good story, God, but you've got an even better one. And so yet again, the worker was like, they're siblings. They're going to be split up because they're very close in age. We don't know what's going to happen. We just need somewhere for him to go. And I was like, well, yes. I mean, I'm grieving over the loss of a pregnancy, and a baby is going to, like, I need something to love on, you know? And so that's how Kobe came to our house. In the middle of a thunderstorm. I tell him, you blew in the middle of a tornado warning, and you've been blowing through my life ever since. I haven't sat down since. And so Kobe came into our home, and we realized what the weight in the appeal, because we would have been closed up, sealed, done a long time ago. But God had a plan in the waiting for Willa Kate's adoption to go through. And so Kobe came to our home, and that was about 3 years of visits, and
that's a long time.
It's a very long time. You know, again,
3 years of visits with Kobe, or
3 years of
Like
visits
social
with
workers.
social workers and parents and what's going to happen. His case lasted for about 3 years, and court and all of those things. And yeah, God just, there were days where we didn't know what was going to happen next again. And God made a way when there didn't seem like there was a way, because we truly felt like Kobe was the missing piece to our family. And so we just prayed and hoped, and then
and now all adoptions are final.
all adoptions are final.
Thank you, Lord.
In November, they
Literally
were,
just in November.
they were
Wow.
final. And our house, we said, it's been a great 10 years, but we're done.
That's a very long. Like, I don't think I know anyone else around our age to keep their home open for that long.
And some of it was not by choice, you know, because we were waiting.
Right.
But
Because foster care can be so
yes,
hard.
Tedious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and just like
emotional roller coaster.
emotional. Yes. It is like every day you almost kind of like have to lay down and be like, all right, I don't know what in the world's coming tomorrow. Just so many, and especially when you have multiple cases open at one time. We had 2 kiddos, and they were both in the same county at the same time of Mark's. But yeah, you're dealing with different social workers, different resource workers, all the things,
All the
different
people.
families,
Yes.
different visit times, and so it's a lot. And then you have your own, you know, the other kiddos at home that you're also.
And they're getting older, so they're, you know, seeing this more from, like, my older 3, kind of getting to watch that, and us being, we're just taking care of Kobe, you know, and then it changed to, well, Kobe might stay, you know, so they're in this time in with us in the process, because they're older, and they, you know, they understand more. So it was more of a family we were fostering.
What would you say to someone on the fence about fostering?
I can't think of a better depiction of kingdom work
That's what I always say.
on earth. You're truly loving selflessly, unconditionally, with nothing in return. It's not for the faint of heart. I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, go for it, just see what happens, you know. But if you feel like God is calling you to it, it's very, very rewarding. No matter how it turns out, you know.
Yeah.
And there are people that I know that are in it for different, you know, adoption, or just being a bridge between, you know, children and reunifying with their parents. But I can't think of a better depiction of the gospel, and just pouring your heart out.
What would you say to the people that are in it, that are like, yeah, and I don't know how I'm going to make it till tomorrow?
You will. God has a plan. He's a God of details. He loves us. He loves our kids. He will make a way when there's not a way. He's done mighty, 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 mighty things. There's so many little details that we could sit here all day and I could tell about. But you will find a group of people, a group of other foster parents that you can lean on, that you can vent to, that you can cry to. But you will get through it, and just keep pressing on. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it feels like the good is not winning. Sometimes it feels like no one is looking out for what's best. But
I just want, we have like 1 minute left in the show, but I'm thinking about that moment when God turned your heart open towards fostering, and it was one night, right? And all of a sudden, this thing was
Parenthood
awakening
episode.
in your heart. Maybe somebody's listening right now and they feel this rush of emotion and it's scary and exciting and you are feeling all the feels. And I just want you to pray and say, Lord, what is your plan for me? And to be open that maybe God is leading you to this. And will you be, like our guest, willing to say, all right, God, I'm open. You take me through the steps, step by step.
That's so good, Kendra. Because, that's a real feeling of like, I remember at a doctor's appointment one time, I was like, when we left, I went on a walk with a friend, and I was like, I said it through mad tears, but I said, I think God's preparing my heart to love someone else's baby. And I just remember coming to that realization, being like, okay, I think I'm going to have to be okay with this.
Wow.
Yeah.
You won't regret it.
No.
You won't regret it.
No.
Well, thank you guys. We told you it was going to be a good story. Thank you, Lianna, again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you back again on Hannah's Heart next week.